Asiedu Nketia, that's his real name, but he's popularly known as General Mosquito. He's been member of parliament. I'm sure if you were still in parliament, they'll call you Honorable Mosquito. How have the past few weeks been?
Very hectic. We've had to go into this registration exercise with the rules not very certain, because this is the only registration exercise which we embarked on, and the rules kept changing even in the course of the game. It's a very interesting thing. I haven't heard about any such exercise.
I would want to hear which of the rules changed in the middle of the game.
Well, particularly the designation of registration centers.
As in the ones that were taken to schools, senior high schools, the polling stations or registration centers.
Because it is a clear requirement that before a registration exercise begins, the Electoral Commission, which has the mandate to designate places as registration centers, is required to designate those places and inform the parties at least 21 clear days before the start of the exercise. So this is the only exercise.
So it just jumped at you in the middle of the...
In the middle of the exercise, then they kept changing and introducing new centers for whatever purpose.
I'm going to ask you to give us your own analysis of the registration so far. But first of all, let's talk about the people who manage the electoral body of Ghana. What do you make of Jean Mensa, Professor Asari, Bosman Asari, and Mr. Tete? These three people are the ones who run the elections. What do you make of them?
They are all new people who are not prepared to learn anything. So they just came on the job with some ideas from somewhere, and without regard to precedents or law, decides that they have the power to do whatever they think is right, and then they approach the exercise. So the nation's interests would have been better served if they were a little bit more prepared to learn from the experiences that have been gathered over the years at the Commission. They would have done a better job than they are currently doing. Their conduct appears to have dissipated a lot of the confidence the Ghanaian electorate had in our Electoral Commission, unfortunately.
But how do you situate these requests for experience from people against the independence of the Electoral Commission? Because the argument to be made that, well, they are independent, they don't really have to come and ask you for any opinion. And
the Electoral Commission has always been independent. And so if they had conducted themselves independently and had resolved certain problems in a certain way, it is only a matter of, wisdom for their successors to pick from the accumulated knowledge that the Commission itself had made, so that they will not be repeating mistakes that had been committed in the past.
But someone like Tete has been in the system all this while. Perhaps he would be a good guide for the three of them, even if the two of them are new. But and again, Jean Mensa has been involved in an electoral process all these years.
They are not. Jean Mensa has never been involved in any electoral process.
The IEA.
IEA was not involved in electoral process. They are involved about commenting on electoral process. They have never.
They have been operating in the electoral space, haven't they?
Operating in the electoral space, all of you have been operating in the electoral space, but managing elections is different from operating from the electoral space. It depends upon where and which angle you are operating from. He has been involved in commenting on electoral issues and at times mobilizing opinions to
You're referring to Bosman. You're referring to Bosman now?
Bosman, Jean Mensa, and all of them. It's only Tete who has been involved in the game for quite some time now. But where you are dealing with about 4 or 5 new persons, Tete alone, I'm not sure, can tilt the balance in any direction.
What were some of the key errors they made in your view? if they made any errors at all?
Relating to the management of the commission itself, that's the issues, and then relating to this registration, we also have different issues. Relating to managing the commission itself, I think their biggest problem has been the attitude towards IPAC. Because IPAC was the brainchild of the Electoral Commission itself. They knew they were independent, but yet found the need to establish IPAC because they have a mandate to deliver credible elections, and the credibility of elections must come from the way the public perceived the elections. Credibility, your own credibility, is not established by what you think. Mm-hmm. It's established about by the assessment of your work by outsiders. Mm. But they seem to be thinking that they have a mandate to deliver credible elections, and it is their idea about what constitutes credible elections that must form the basis of their assessment. Mm. That was wrong. I think that when we talk about credible elections, the elections must be accepted by the people you are serving with the elections as credible. Political parties must see your work as credible. The general population must see your work as credible. So if all these stakeholders don't see your work as credible, and in your own opinion, your work is credible, you are not doing credible elections.
But if you flip the coin, another argument against you would be that it is NDC that is saying the process is not credible, and that you want to be heard and your advice must be acted upon at all costs. But you're just advisory, as in IPAC. You can only advise. There should be no obligation on the Electoral Commission to take the advice.
I'm not sure they have been listening to other opinion leaders, because there is no single issue which NDC raised and we found ourselves alone holding that opinion. That's why we are saying that public opinion. When we raise issues about their management of IPAC, there are a lot of, stakeholders who believe that the points we were making were relevant. And so it is not about NDC alone demanding that they should do things in a certain way. But IPAC has now been reduced from a consultative forum into an information delivering forum. And that is not the objective of establishing IPAC. So IPAC is of no use now.
You have been a unit committee member, you've been assembly member, member of parliament, general secretary, both in and out of government. Yeah. Since Afarijan left as the head of the Electoral Commission, you can describe what's happening at the EC as unstable. So there's been instability at the Electoral Commission. What do you think is the future of the Electoral Commission like? Well, you listen to NDC people make comments like, well, when we come, we'll remove Jean Mensa. NPP came, Charles Osei was removed. Is the Electoral Commission ever going to be the same?
I doubt it very much. Because, you see, when you have a stable institution and you decide to politicize that institution, then you create serious crisis for the institution itself and for the nation it is serving. That was why some of us felt that even if you have an issue with an independent institution, you try and contribute through your sharing of ideas and other things to strengthen it, rather than descending on that institution and changing the persons involved and so on. So once you set a precedent of changing people anytime you find a problem with the institution, you never know where it will stop. So it's a serious disservice the MPP had done to the nation by seeking to change the composition of the Electoral Commission. Professor Mills was faced with such a challenge when there was hue and cry about the continuous stay in office of the former Chief Justice. But he resisted that temptation and then tried to do whatever he thought was possible to help the judiciary grow. Unfortunately, Nana Addo failed that test and decided to go into changing the composition of the Electoral Commission. And once the precedence has been set and the nation has accepted it, it will be difficult to restrain any other person who decides on something else to change the composition of other independent institutions. And that will amount to a disservice to our democracy.
If NDC wins, are there chances that Jean Mensa and the rest will pack out of the Electoral Commission?
Oh, you don't punish somebody without establishing his or her offense. So I cannot be saying that because Nana Akufo-Addo has changed somebody at the Electoral Commission, you also have to change
even if
somebody.
Your supporters are crying for it?
I'm saying that we don't act before you come to find reasons. You find reasons to act. Mm-hmm. But it is unfortunate now that the reasons based upon which the previous commissioners were changed, we still believe that they were not good enough reasons for commissioners to be changed. But it has been now established as a precedent. So it will be easier for subsequent governments to also begin to change.
Have you found reasons for these people to be changed?
We are not there yet. When we get
but
there,
considering the distrust,
of course, we will investigate everything that they have done, and if there is sufficient reason for them to be changed, why not? It will be in the service of the nation. Because previously, we were of the opinion that procurement breaches could not be the basis for Electoral Commission members to be changed, or justices of the Superior Court should not be changed based on procurement reasons. But now, the courts themselves have established that procurement breaches can be the basis for the change of membership. So, if procurement breaches are found to have implicated any other person who has been otherwise protected by the Constitution, that person will have no protection again from being removed.
As I want to ask you this question as a Ghanaian, not as an NDC member, mm-hmm. and considering your history in Ghana's politics and your aspirations to see the country develop, would you kick against any plans to replace the EC boss if NDC wins?
I haven't seen those plans yet. When I see those plans,
regardless of how legitimate the plans are.
I'm saying that if I see those plans, I'll be able to determine whether those plans ought to be supported or kicked against. And at this stage, I haven't seen any such plan yet.